What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be going over some advice for slow wide receivers. We're going to be talking about the things that make wide receivers slow at the top of the route, off the line, just slow in general, and then some specific tips, drills, exercises that you guys can do to get faster. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Now, also, fellas, if you'd like to train with us this offseason, we're coming out to 15 different states across the U.S. for 2-day long QB and wide receiver camp. So check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested. We're going to be coming out to San Francisco, California, Miami, Florida, Las Vegas, Nevada. Then we'll be coming out to Charlotte, North Carolina, Portland, Oregon, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Buffalo, New York, Chicago, Illinois, Atlanta, Georgia, Houston, Texas, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Michigan, Boise, Idaho, and Los Angeles, California. So again, if you guys would like some more information, want to sign up to train with us, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started with this video.
All right, guys, so in this first example here, we're going to be breaking down how wide receivers can get out of their breaks faster with this slow example first. So we're going to be showing a slow example of a route, and then we're going to be showing the exact same type of break with a fast example and what wide receivers can do to make sure this never happens to them in this example right here from Hollywood Brown. So let's play this thing full speed. So a lot of wide receivers at the top of the break struggle dropping their hips because they are not violent enough. They do not drop explosively into the break. They do not drop quickly into the break, and that is what limits their speed, right? That is why they're so slow out of their cuts. You guys got to understand that the faster you get into a break, the more energy you create at the break, the faster and more energy we are going to have out of a break. So let's break down this route from top to bottom, and then we'll show a positive example. So this receiver, he has his inside shade coverage DB, gives him a move inside, takes an outside release, right? He does everything right. You have inside shade press with an inside route. You got to make sure that you don't force the inside release, take the outside release. Now, when we take the outside release, our goal is to be able to stack this DB. But if I'm not fast enough to, maybe this DB is quicker than me, maybe he plays it well and he's right on my hip, what we would want to do at the break point is we'd want to drop my hips and try to slip underneath this DB. They call that a throw-by move or maybe a slip-under move. But the issue is when you do that move, you have to drop your hips. And if your hips are slow, if you are sinking your hips, which means a slow drop of your hips, as soon as that DB sees you drop, not only does that give him an indicator of when you're going to break, but the slower your hips move, the slower your feet are going to be, and just the slower the route is going to be. Guys, when you guys are dropping your hips on any route, it doesn't even have to be in this situation. It could be on a 5-yard hitch. It could be on a 15-yard comeback. You have to be violent. So what do I mean by violent? I mean you are trying to slam your hips down. You almost want to think of it like you have a string attached to your chin and somebody is pulling the string straight down to your knee. You see how this is like a slow string pull, if you will. There's not much quickness. I tell my wide receivers you want to try to touch your chest to your quads as quickly as possible. Another analogy that I like to use, and we're going to be showing Tank Dell drop, and I know anybody who has ever watched Tank Dell run routes, he does an insane job at this, and we're going to break that down in a second. But when you guys drop, it's almost like I say you want to play like musical chairs. How quickly can you sit down? But if you have a slow sit, that makes our route slow, makes our break slow, and that DB has an easy money play. So let's take a look at this type of break here from Tank Dell. This is exactly what you want to be shooting for as a wide receiver. Now, there are some different exercises and drills that you can do to build on this, and that's what we're going to discuss as this video progresses. But let's talk about the technique first. So he comes off the ball here, takes this outside release on a curl route, drops. And you see how freaking fast he's out of that break. Like that is, and honestly, like you may not be able to achieve like Tank Dell like type athleticism, but I think every wide receiver can get better at stuff like this and get more explosive, get out of their breaks quicker, and get more separation because of it simply by following these simple tips and simple workouts that we're going to give you in a second. So when Tank Dell drops into this break, you see how leading into the break, obviously, number one, he's got a lot of speed. He is running hard. He's attacking the depth of the route because we have to sell vertical, right? And we got to get this DB to open up his gate and make him think that it's a fade. But even if we get this DB to open up and think that it's a fade, if my break is slow, that DB is going to be able to react. Wide receivers can't be slow out of their cuts. You cannot be slow out of their cuts. You can't be slow off the ball. You can't be slow out of your stance, and you cannot be slow at the top of the route. So when he drops into this thing, I want you to pay attention to how quickly he drops. Everything shoots down. You see how that chin is going to the knee. Chest is going to the quad. But notice how when he drops too, his legs do not break a 90-degree angle. That is something that a lot of wide receivers, when they try to drop into a break, they are slow out of the break because their butt will drop below their knees. That is not an athletic position to be in. Like think of it like this. Like let's say you're doing squats. You're doing the exercise squats and you're squatting down. And what do you think is a more athletic position? When you drop and your butt goes below your knees, or when you stay at parallel? What position do you think you'll be able to run out of? Parallel position, obviously, right? If you get too low, and I'm not saying to go 50% of your squats, I'm just saying, though, it's a more athletic position to be at 50%. So when you guys drop into a break, something that you need is you need strength in that position. You need stability in your legs. So how quickly can we get to that 90-degree angle? Can you get your chest to your quads, hold that 90, and be able to decelerate on a dime? And that deceleration on a dime comes from that AKA string pull. Somebody's got a string attached to your chin. How violently can you pull that string down? Something I tell my wide receivers to think of is like in like the olden days, you know, like the guillotine thing where a dude will put his head in it and they like pull the string and that like knife comes down, cuts the dude's head off. That's how you want to think of your like hips on this. You want to shoot your hips down. Think of your chin as like a guillotine because that's how fast you have to be. Now, let's say maybe you're not naturally this like explosive. Let's say naturally you maybe lack explosion. You lack speed. That's why you feel like your brakes are slow at the top. What can you do to improve this? So I guarantee you that Tank Dell has worked a lot on his like quick twitch, aka his fast twitch muscle fibers in his body. So like every single athlete is comprised of two types of muscle fibers. You got fast twitch fibers and slow twitch fibers. Slow twitch fibers are things that like, you know, a soccer player might have, a distance runner, right? They can go longer, but they are not fast and they are not explosive. A fast twitch guy, and that's sometimes you're just born with more fast twitch fibers because of genetics, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't develop it. But let's say you're just naturally born with more fast twitch fibers. You're going to be better at these types of things. You just see guys sometimes and they just have that natural twitch. That's what we mean. That's that fast twitch muscle fiber. So what you can do to increase these fast twitch fibers, and remember I talked about exercises you can do, is you got to honestly, fellas, you got to work on explosive movements in the gym. Box jumps, single leg box jumps, Olympic lifts like power cleans, hang cleans. Again, any type of plyometric type training, all those explosive movements where you are exerting all out effort in a specific rep, those are going to help you in this specific situations. Because at the break point, are you exerting all that effort? Absolutely, you have to exert all that effort so he could get out of this thing quickly with little to no wasted time. Now, remember, like I said, fellas, when you guys drop, you don't ever want to break 90 because that's going to make your cut slow. So what you need is you need a lot of stability in your legs. So something that could help you is, you know, maybe doing like lunge planks where you hold a lunge at 90 degree and you set a timer for 30 to 50 seconds. That's going to burn like hell, but it's going to get you strong in the exact position we need to get to. Maybe doing split squats where one foot's up on a bench and you squat down. Maybe doing, you know, like just simple like pause squats where you pause at 50%. Things that are going to build stability in this lower half will help you with speed if you're doing those Olympic lifts, working on the technique and trying to be as violent as possible. Because a lot of receivers just aren't strong right here. And that's why their cuts are slow, because they take a million steps, because they drop violently, but they take a million steps because they're not stable at that violent position. We have to be able to drop quickly and have strength at that break. So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Dell dropping on a dime and showcasing what it should look like when you drop your hips at the top of the route. Okay, so this route we're going to be looking at here for Brandon Aiyuk is a great example of how wide receivers can get faster on one single foot cut. So I'm talking like a post route. I'm talking a corner route. This, in this case, is like a speed cut dig, and it's all based on your foot strike. So many wide receivers lose speed at the top of the route because they have improper foot strike. They are striking the ground on your heels rather than the ball of your foot. So that's what I want to focus on. So he plays full speed. He's running, pushing vertical, cuts. And you see how fast he's out of that thing, right? And again, it doesn't even get him that like a bunch of separation, but it gets him open, and he's in and out of that break quickly, especially when you're facing zone or off man coverage. It is so important that we are out of our breaks fast, because the more time you waste at the break point, more time the DB has to recover. So I want you to watch how he cuts off of this outside foot. What hits the ground first? Ball of his foot hits the ground first. But notice his whole foot is down, right? There's a lot of bad info out there. I feel a lot of wide receiver coaches and speed coaches and people who talk about athletic performance say you always want to be on your toes, your heels never want to touch the ground. Yeah, try running a post route off of your tippy toes. Like, you're not going to have any freaking balance, you're not going to have any explosion. Your whole foot needs to make contact with the ground so you could stop. And you want it to be a powerful step. However, the first part of your foot that hits the ground is the ball of your foot. Because when that ball of your foot hits the ground first, you are in a position to where you can drive off of that foot. A lot of receivers try to over-exaggerate their cuts because they're trying to do too much. They're trying to sell it. They're trying to reach way outside their body frame. And when this foot reaches outside your frame, the first part that hits is your heel. And when your heel hits first, your toe snaps down. And that causes your leg to hyperextend. You have no knee bend. You have no give. And you can't push out of this break, so you end up taking a bunch of extra steps. Or this next step, you see how Aiyuk, when he cuts, watch where his next step is. It's already down the 90-degree angle. A lot of wide receivers, because they're not strong on this cut leg, that next step will be almost a negative step and step this way because they're not pushing and driving due to improper foot strike. So we stay on the ball of my foot. You push off of it. You push off that middle arch. Ball of the foot strikes, then your heel can come down and you push off of that middle arch. Almost like you're like a pitcher in baseball and you're pushing off of the rubber. That's how I want you guys to think of your cuts. But you got to cut first. We can't get out of it too soon, and that's what we're going to talk about in this next example from Tank Dell running a similar route. So this is a textbook router from Ayuk. Way to get out of this break and get up into this route. So again, this is another example here from Tank Dell, and obviously you could tell one of the best in terms of cuts, I think, right? Honestly, when it comes down to just route running, I know he's unproven because he's a rookie, obviously, and a lot of these guys are unproven, but like you watch some of the dudes that are so freaking explosive with their routes, like Tank Dell, Garrett Wilson, like they all have these things in common, guys. There's a reason why they move like that. Have a lot of God-gifted talent? Absolutely. Do they work insanely hard? Absolutely. But I think you guys could work insanely hard as well at these certain things and still be able to improve your game like this. Will you run routes exactly like Tank Dell? Maybe not. But you could get to the top of your own personal game, and that's obviously the goal. So let's watch what Tank Dell does here. I want to talk to you guys about committing your upper half to a single cut or a speed cut, right? So a lot of times guys are very hesitant to cut off of one foot, be on the ball of their foot, drive off of the cut, moving with a lot of speed because they're like, oh, well, what if I hurt myself, right? And again, being outside of your body frame is what's going to hurt you. So you see when Tank Dell makes this cut, I want you to pay attention to his hips and his shoulders. You see how when he makes this cut, everything's vertical, and when he cuts, that foot makes contact with the ground. His hip and his shoulder are still like kind of going this way, if you will. His hips and shoulders are not already out of the break, leaving the foot behind. That's how you get more speed, fellas, because the more this cut is under you, the more you can push off. A lot of receivers get so anxious to get out of their breaks, especially routes where they're cutting off of one foot, that right before the break point, their hip and their shoulder will already start to turn. They'll already snap their head around, and they try to cut, but that foot is way outside their frame. So they might slip. They're not going to get any push because it's outside their body frame. And they're actually slower out of the break when they think snapping their head around is going to get them out faster. So fellas, you have to commit to the cut. Keep your hips and your shoulders committed, vertical, committed to the left or committed to the right, depending on what we're breaking on, until that foot makes contact. Then when it makes contact, let's get out of the break all at once with my upper body. And trust me, you will feel safer on this cut. You'll have more explosion and more speed because you can push and drive off that break. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. Leave those in the comment section below, and we'll see you guys next time.